There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another page 112 tag, the book haul edition. This is how I have started doing my book hauls. I don't just show you the books and read the back cover or read the first paragraph. Instead, I use them as fodder for my page 112 tags. I'm going to read you page 112 from each of these three books without telling you until the end who the authors and what the titles are, and I will give you my reaction to them and then I'll reveal them. So I've got three books today that are from non-white writers that I've recently picked up at a used bookstore. But before that, I'm also going to do a little bit of a haul of books that I've acquired that I don't plan to feature as their page 112. This one is the top read of my year so far, Freshwater by Akwaeke Emeze, and I had read it on ebook via Scribd, but loved it so much. And I was worried that this hardcover, I think it's the American edition? Yeah, I was worried that this hardcover American edition would get sold out if I didn't buy it quickly, so I bought it this month. And isn't that gorgeous cover? So that's in my hot little hand. And as I have mentioned before, I'm collecting the newly reissued hardcover editions of all 22 of Muriel Sparks' novels that are being published by Polygon Press in Edinburgh. And I received number 2 in the mail a few weeks ago. I am not featuring Muriel Spark on my page 112 tags anymore because she always wins. So I've got this one. So this will be Adam, Leah, and I are buddy reading The Comforters starting in a couple weeks, and then this will be the next. If the buddy read continues, this will be number 2. Without further ado, here's book number 1. I Want to Come Back. Is your father going with you? No, he'll remain here, but you sometimes get a feeling that you're going away from someone forever. That's how I feel, and that's what makes it all so awful. Again, silence settled between them, and Njoroge wanted to change the subject. They have changed sides. Let's go and cheer. The two moved back to the field, again shy with each other. They moved into two different directions, as if they were afraid of another contact. Muihaki wrote frequently, and Njoroge could remember her first letter just before she went to the teacher training school. Dear Njoroge, you don't know how much I miss you. For the last few days I have been thinking of nothing but you. The knowledge that you're so far from me makes the thoughts very painful. But I know what you are doing there. I know you'll do well, because you've got determination. I trust you. I'm going to the training school next week. Living here has been hell for me. Father has changed much. He seems to be fearing something. Every day there have been some new arrests and some houses burnt down by Maui Maui. Yesterday I found some people being beaten, and they were crying, oh, so horribly, begging for mercy. I don't know what's happening. Fear in the air. Not a fear of death. It's a fear of living. I am caught in it, and if this goes on, I feel as if I could go mad. I'm telling all this to show you how glad I am at the prospects of escaping away from it all. And Njoroge wondered what changes he would find at home when the end of the year came. Alright, so that's book number 1. This has a quiet power to it. It's prose that doesn't draw attention to itself. But I guess I found the letter from Muihaki to Njoroge really quite powerful. So the reference to Maui Maui, to those of you in the know, it refers to the British colonialist massacre in Kenya in the I forget when it was, 1940s I want to say. You can kind of guess that that's the setting of the story. I don't have much else to say. I'm grabbed by the quiet power of that letter, but I don't know if I can separate what I know about the author from my reaction to this page, and that sometimes happens, right? That's book number 1. Book number 2. When she married him, he was only 9 years old, and she was 11. She waited patiently for him to mature. She had felt the first down of his beard, surprised the first spring of desire in his body, and seen his limbs grow out and his muscles swell up, as he turned into the majestic windbag whom she soon learnt to tame. She had never ceased being the favorite wife, adulated, wooed, honored, and above all listened to and obeyed. At the end of a day, or upon his return from a lion hunt, a tournament, a bloody clash, a stormy assembly of the emirs, or, worse, a tedious work session with Nizam, Malik Shah would find peace in the arms of Turkin. He would peel off her diaphanous silk coverings, snuggle up to her bare skin, play about, bellow, and tell her about his exploits and what was tiring him. The Chinese woman would throw her arms around the excited lion, cocoon him, give him a hero's welcome in the folds of her body, and hold on to him long and tight, only letting go so that she could pull him back again. He stretched himself out with all his weight, conquering, breathless, panting, submissive, and bewitched. She knew how to take him to the very limits of pleasure. Then, gently, his thin fingers would start to trace her eyebrows, her eyelashes, her lips, her earlobes, and the lines of her moist neck. The lion was subdued. He was purring, growing sluggish, smiling. Turkin's words would then flow into the hollows of his soul. She would speak of him, of herself and their children. She would tell him anecdotes, recite poems for him, whisper parables laden with teachings. He was never bored for a second in her arms, and he resolved to stay with her every evening. In his own rough, childish, and animal way, he loved her, and was to love her until his last breath. She knew that he could refuse her nothing, and it was she who planned his conquests of the moment, his mistresses or provinces. In the whole empire she had no rival other than Nizam, and in this year of 1092 she was on the verge of felling him. Was the Chinese woman exultant at this? How could she be? The moment she was alone, or with Jahan, her confidant, she would cry the tears of a mother and sultana. She could curse her unjust fate, and no one thought to blame her for it. Her eldest son had been chosen by Malik Shah as his heir, and was with him on all his trips and at all his ceremonies. His father was so proud of him that he displayed him everywhere, showing him his provinces, one by one, telling him of the day when he would succeed him. Okay, well, that was spellbinding. That really grabbed me. I love the rhythm, the musicality of the prose. So obviously we're way back in history, and this is about some kind of Arabic king or sultan or something. It's a little problematic at the beginning when the young married couple are 11 and 9, but historical accuracy, people. I don't know what else to say about that. It was erotic and playful, and I loved the way it played with gender in the sexual exchange of energy and playfulness going back and forth. I really liked it. So Turkin is the Chinese woman. Malik Shah is her royal lover, husband. So it's Malik Shah and Turkin. Turkin is Chinese. She's called Turkin and the Chinese woman. The majestic windbag. That just caught me by surprise. I had to double check the dictionary. Is there another meaning other than somebody who talks excessively? No, there's not. So this is a very sweet, romantic, and erotic passage, and suddenly his muscles swell up. Okay. And as he turned into the majestic windbag whom she soon learnt to tame. Yeah, that was quite a startling choice of words. There's one rhetorical device that's a little bit overly repetitious here. Adulated, wooed, honored, and above all listened to, and then snuggle up, play about, bellow. Conquering, breathless, panting, submissive, and bewitched. There was just a little bit too much of that which detracted from its power, because it's quite lovely in small doses. And how did you feel about everybody's most favorite adjective, moist? Did that kind of ruin anything for you? But no, I think this really makes me want to read this book. I'm very impressed by it. And book number 3. We told her to imagine the things she and her mother would be able to buy with the gold. A television, a record player, a refrigerator. But she said she didn't want anything. "It's my tooth," she said. "It's mine." Then I told her it had probably been her father's plan all along. He probably thought Priscilla and her mother would need the gold to find their way home to him, and the idea seemed to console her momentarily. A week later, the tooth came out at last. We were sharing a bag of fish balls at the pool when Priscilla suddenly spat the tooth into her hand. We stared for a while at that ingot, sitting in a small pool of spittle and blood and masticated fish. Then Priscilla wiped it off and passed it around. The tooth didn't seem so brilliant outside of her mouth. It just looked like a shiny little pebble, impossibly light in my hand. We took the tooth back to Priscilla's mother, and she put it away in a teakwood box next to Elvis Presley's portrait. The housing development's decline became painfully visible, just as my parents had predicted. For the first time, the development company didn't bother to fill the gaping potholes created by the wet season floods. There were so many craters in the roads, Mother said she was beginning to think we lived on the moon. She said, "Dear God, I really don't care about the health club or the pool or the community garden anymore. I just want to ride my bike to the bus stop without breaking my goddamn neck." More rats started appearing as well. Okay, well, that's very lively and interesting and quite a vivid scene. Priscilla spatting her tooth out at the pool. Oh yeah, I really like this. And Mother complaining about wanting to ride her bike to the bus stop without breaking her goddamn neck. Yeah, this has a lot of energy to it. So what's going on with the housing development? And why had the narrator's parents predicted it? What's going on here? So my parents, but then that my parents are someone different than Priscilla's, because they talk about Priscilla's father's plan to give her the gold tooth that she can use to pay to go home, wherever home is. We're not talking about the narrator and Priscilla are not siblings. Oh, but then Priscilla's mother. So there's a reference to Priscilla's mother, which I'd missed. So the father and the mother are not living together, it seems like, and the father seems like he's living far away. But Priscilla's tooth right next to Elvis Presley's portrait, did that ring any bells for anybody but me? Okay, yeah, I like it. So, what would be your first pick? Book number 1, book number 2, book number 3, and what do you think mine would be? I noticed some of you have started to do your comments in 2 parts. First, you make a comment about your guesses about your picks, and maybe your guesses about my picks before you finish watching the video, and I really enjoy that. These are pretty close together, but mine would be, first pick is book number 2, the one about the young lovers, the Chinese woman taming the tiger. I thought that was really quite stunning. And my second pick would be the book number 3 about the golden tooth. And a little bit distant, but still, I'm still really quite taken with book number 1, but it would be rather a distant third. The other two almost not so much in terms of my enthusiasm. There's not much difference in my enthusiasm between book number 2 and book number 3, and a little bit more of a gap for book number 1, but I am curious to read all of them. Alright, so now I'll reveal the books to you in the order in which I chose them. So my first choice was book number 2, and that is, oh, the glare is, Samarkand by Amin Maalouf. And Eric Carl Anderson just talked about this on his Classics and Contemporary tag the other day. This was a 1988 novel, I believe, translated from the French in 1989. And look at this gorgeous, completely unread, brand new softcover I picked up here in Tokyo. As Eric explained on his video, this is the story of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. So it's a historical novel about the creation of that manuscript by the poet and sage in the 11th century, and continues until, and I don't know if this is a true historical fact, if it is, it's news to me, to its loss when the Titanic sunk in 1912. Is that true? And so, sweeping historical novel. The writing, if page 112 is any judge, and I believe that it should be, the writing is really great. Amin Maalouf is a Lebanese journalist who's been living in France since 1976. He wrote this in French, not Arabic. And it's translated by Russell Harris. Yeah, I want to read this. Anybody, this would probably be a 2019 read for me, or a very late 2018 read, but if anybody interested in buddy reading this, I'm very curious. My second pick is book number 3, and that is a short story collection called Sightseeing by Radawoot Lapshar Owensap. He is an American writer born in Chicago, by the way, but he was raised in Bangkok, so maybe Thai-American writer. Anyway, I've heard of this collection a little bit, but nothing much, and I like this page. And the stories are set in contemporary Thailand. This is his debut. I don't know if he's had anything else come out after that, and this was published in 2005, so presumably he has. But yeah, I'd like to give these a try. And my choice number 3, which was book number 1, is the classic African novel Weep Not Child by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. This was his first novel, if I'm not mistaken, first published in 1964. And I have wanted to read this for a long time. I finally found a used copy in good shape the other day at the used bookstore here in Tokyo, and it's a short little book. I will be reading it soon. But compared to the other two, the prose didn't grab me, but except that letter had a quiet power, so yeah, it didn't turn me off either. But Wat Thiong'o is somebody everybody thinks should get the Nobel Prize for Literature, and I have read his one volume of his memoirs, which, because I'm not really much of a memoir reader, I didn't enjoy, but I enjoyed learning more about his life. And so I've forgotten the name of it. Arranged on my books, so I can't find it, but I'll put the title down here because it chronicled his life during his becoming a writer. So there's a lot in that memoir about the writing of this book. So look forward to reading it. So those are 3 more books for my book haul. I look forward to your comments below. Thanks for watching.